Hey guys, welcome back to the Vibe Guide. This week's episode, well, I hope everyone's having a wonderful week, first of all. This week's episode, I want to talk about the job search, the job hunt, coming at it from an intuitive perspective, because that's what I'm dealing with right now in my life. So we'll get into that. A little bit of like astrology update. I feel like it's kind of a big update. I'm not an astrologer. I follow it. That's it. Because use astrology for my own life and I feel like it's pretty dead on. Um, Pluto, I want to make sure I'm saying this right because I don't know if I am. It was in Capricorn for like the last 16 years, since 2008. So now it has moved into Aquarius and it'll be there for the next 20 years. So there's a lot of changes that will come with that, like on an individual level and a collective level. And I think the collective level is like way more interesting than the individual level. I'm breathing a sigh of relief because Pluto and Capricorn, I have so much Capricorn in my chart, you guys. I have like 9 planets in Capricorn or some shit like that. Like a lot of Capricorn because I'm right on the cusp. I'm December 21st, the winter solstice, longest day of the year, Sagicorn. So I am like heavy on the Capricorn. So Pluto being, in Capricorn has been like a big, Pluto's all about like transformation and those like really deep, dark, shadowier sides of yourself. And so I feel like that's been like a really heavy part of my life for the first like chunk of it. And when I had my astrology reading, a few months ago, she had mentioned that like the first part of my life is going to be the second part of my life, or however many parts of my life I have after this, are going to be a lot more like smooth sailing for me, a lot more like, whew, okay. Like, and I do feel that because I feel like the first 30, I'm 33 years old, right? Yeah, 33, turning 34 in December. Um, it's been a lot of like really tough lessons and learning really deep stuff about myself and like um, really necessary lessons that I needed in order, like really hard, painful lessons in order to like understand myself on a much deeper level. And I feel like that's a lot of that Pluto energy. And it's been pretty painful, like a lot of the stuff that I've gone through, and I've learned stuff like the really hard way. And I don't know, it's just like what my soul called in for itself. And it's a part of the reason why I'm here. It's part of the reason why I have a podcast and I share so much. And everybody's journeys are just so individual and different. And the things that I've experienced, people have experienced, but maybe not in the same way or in the same age, or, so there's always like variation. And, but I think in general, like themes of things people can relate to. So I think a lot of that stuff that I've gone through in like the first like 34 years of my life, um, it's been all about like personal transformation and like really growing as an individual to be better in the collective, like to understand my deepest, darkest sides of myself and the sides of myself that I don't really love, but it's there and it's not going anywhere. So learn how to deal with it and how to navigate it and, um, take accountability, really. So there's just been like a lot of that like deeper soul searching, having a spiritual awakening, going from basically being an atheist to full on, spiritual guide and like tapping into my spirit guides and doing intuitive one-on-one life coaching where I'm letting people know messages from their spirit guides and things like that, like, complete 360. So a lot has transpired for me since Pluto's been in Capricorn and just on that deep, really deep soul level. So I'm like excited for the next 20 years of just like living in it and like breathing it and it being a lot easier. And like I don't have all these like heavy hitting lessons coming at me left, right, and center all the fucking time. And I can just like ease into my life and like really figure out, you know, more more life things like where I feel like I've done the internal journey. Now it's like more of like this external, like career, like where am I going to live, like foundational things, like do I want to get married, do I want to have a family, like these kinds of things I feel like are in the next chapter of my life. And like it's appropriate, I think, for the age. Some people, I guess maybe a little bit of a late bloomer in that sense. Maybe I'm 34, but timing is what it is. And there's no way I could have even thought about any of this stuff even like a year ago or 2 years ago. It just was not in that same space. And so I feel like now that I'm just like on a really, really good place, like with myself, and I know myself so well, and I've done a lot of work on myself and over the past, 30 years or whatever it's been. Yeah, I just feel like now I can open up the doors for like you know, other possibilities and just like lighter energy, I think. I'm hoping, you guys, like fingers crossed. So, as you guys know, or if you don't know, I'm a dialysis nurse full time, and the job has it's sort of taken a downward turn, and there's just things that I'm not like super happy about. It's not like this like run out of the job and like I'm miserable and like I can't, like how I was in acute care, like I was absolutely miserable and like crying in the parking lot and like having like physiological responses to work, like having extreme heartburn, like having to go get like I was scheduled to get an EGD done before I moved to France and I never got it done. And then go figure after I moved to France, I had like GI issues, but it wasn't the same. Like I thought I had something lodged in my throat for those that don't understand. Like I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was like burning a hole in my esophagus from like drinking coffee at 3 a.m. and like, working night shift and like what it does to your physical body and like the stress of it all. Um, I think all of that played a part in all that GI stuff that I had going on. And so, you know, moving forward and learning from all of that, it's like there are massive boundaries that I have now, like especially still being in healthcare. And so dialysis was one of those jobs where I was really leery in the beginning, but I really, to be honest with you, didn't have too many options, like especially in this area. I was looking for something for work from home, but I actually don't know if that's really a good thing for me because I think I isolate myself really easily and I think I get really happy like being all by myself. Like I could be all by myself for days, weeks, months. Would not bother me. Not in the slightest. Like I don't know. I just get like that. Like I really prefer to be left alone but there's like, I am a Sagittarius and there is like this really when I'm out and about and I'm social and I'm like with people that like I really enjoy being around and like the conversation is good and it's not just like like surface level crap and like like really engaging with people is like I love that. I really do. But I'm not going out to the bars. I'm not doing all that at this stage of my life. Like so it's difficult. So like the alternate is like, yeah, I'm gonna chill and like read my book at home and like be cozy that way. So I don't think like long story short, I think working from home is like not a good thing for me because I feel like it would really like I don't even know if I would see other human beings like at all. So I think that that didn't happen for me for a reason. And like this is what I want to say about like the job search is like I have certain things, but I'm also very flexible. I am not like this specific manifester. People are into manifestation. I am not that at all. Like I put out a general feeling for what I want in a career and like how I want to feel in an everyday job. And then I kinda let the universe bring whatever it needs to me, and then I sort through it with my logical side and my intuitive, like, more feeling side. I've never been a specific manifester. I've always just, like, put out a feeling, a vibe, like, what I want in my life kinda thing, and then I see what happens. I think it's just, like, more exciting that way, but if you follow human design, it will tell you too, and I am, like, a general, like, manifester, I am not a specific manifester, so it makes sense that, like, my entire life, I've never really been, like when people will ask you, like, "Well, what do you want?" Like, especially, like, in a relationship with a partner, they're like, "Well, what do you want?" And, like, some people will be like, "Brown hair, blue eyes, like, Italian." Whatever. And I have never been that kind of person. I'm like, I mean, I could go with that or like this or like that. Sure. Like him. Okay, great. Like, I don't know. And then like I feel it out as I go. And like maybe that's not the best way to go. Maybe that's why I'm single now. I don't know. But I have like a list of things, but that's not like super specific, if that makes sense. Like I like like a well-rounded individual. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like there are absolute no's for me. Absolute no's, and those are clear. But as far as, like, everything else, I'm just like, "Yeah, we'll see," you know? So that's what I mean by, like, specific or, like, general manifesting. So I'm on the general side. So when I approach that with, like, the job search, I have pieces that I'm, like, really willing to not budge on as far especially, like, money, I'm not budging on, especially moving potentially to, like, Northern Virginia or the DC area. No way am I budging on any kind of financial number because I'm living comfortably and I'm not that's just not up for debate. So, and they need me, I don't need them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's the benefit of being a nurse, okay? And these companies need to get with it because you need me, I don't need you. So, yeah, money's like a big one. I don't budge on that because and it's not because of like money and like it's the feeling around it. It's the feeling of like security and I like to I'm a Capricorn like I told you guys. I have such heavy Capricorn. I am like a big saver. People always ask me all the time, "How did you go live in Europe and how did you do this with no job and like you took 2 years off?" Like what? Listen, you know what I mean? Like the money goes in the savings. Like I don't play around with that kind of stuff. Like I research ways to invest my money. I am like I'm decent with money. I'm not a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a billionaire. So clearly I'm like average, mediocre. You know what I mean? I'm middle class out here. But yeah, I don't play around with my money. And so it's because of a sense of security. It's because of I like to live my life a certain way, and I refuse to go back to, when I was like in my college days and like I had like $10 in my bank account and I'm like, bartending and like it just is so stressful. It's so stressful. And I've been there, I've done that, and I'm like never going back to that. And that's part of the reason why I became a nurse. So money is a big one for me, and it's not out of like vanity. It's out of like real necessity for me to like feel safe and secure and um I don't like to feel otherwise. And it's also a reason why I moved back from Europe because I put a number that I was willing for my savings account to get down to, and there was not a huge amount of income coming in. And so, yeah, once I hit that number, I was like buying the plane ticket, I'm out. Like I can't do it. There's just something like I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but like I can't stick it out. I can't do this. I can't wait to see anymore. Like if a job's going to come through in Europe, I can't wait. I got to go home because it just starts fucking with my, you know, security and like feeling safe. And that's just how I am. So, yeah, money's on the list, obviously, which it is for most people. Um, so I'm not flexible as far as that. Like if I was moving to like a different if the rent wasn't going to be crazy expensive, that would be different. But since it is, if you move up to Northern Virginia or DC, like we're not going to budge. So there's that. There's also the time that I want to put in. Like I don't want a Monday through Friday job because you can kiss this podcast completely goodbye if I'm working Monday through Friday. So this podcast is really important to me and I want to continue to do it. And I just met with a producer and it was a really lovely meeting. And there's like work that I need to do, and I'm the only one that can do it. So I need time. And I'm not going to be taking up my weekends to if I'm working like a Monday through Friday job, I'm not going to take up my weekends doing this because I also need like reprieve, especially in healthcare. So Monday through Friday is a no-go for me. And there was one other thing that was like an absolute no, and I can't remember. So you guys can like start to get the gist of like, I go through things very logically and reasonably, and that's like the Capricorn part of myself. But on the other side, I like to have a little bit of like excitement and adventure, and I like to learn more, and I like for my brain to be stimulated, and I like to be challenged. And it's a big part. I've like always wondered why I went back to nursing and like why the stylist job, like why I don't really mind it that much. And I think it's just because it's challenging, but it's not like challenging in the way that I'm like, completely overwhelmed, and I'm like dying every time I come into a shift because that's what it feels like in the hospital. You're just like completely overwhelmed from every fucking angle and you can't even think. Like this job is like there are situations that happen, it happens very quickly. I have to use my critical thinking and then like we move on and like then there might be another fire like a couple hours later and like you put that fire out or like there's very few days where it's just like complete chaos and it's overwhelming. Very few days. And so like I enjoy that. I enjoy the challenge. Like I enjoy using my nursing skills and like using my brain and using my critical thinking skills to like figure out what's going on. And I do enjoy the leadership aspect of it. I didn't think I would enjoy that. So these are things that like I'm bringing into the next possible job. Um, and so feeling that way and like learning that that's what I like. I do like to be in like a little bit more of a leadership position, but I also do like being able to just go home and like I don't like bringing it home with me. Um, and yeah, I like to be part of a team, but I also like to be kind of like the lead, you know? And I like when people come to me and like they need my help and they see they trust me because they know that I don't, take my job very lightly and like I know what I'm talking about. And if I don't, I find the answers or I research it or I look it up for myself. I never just like spew out information that someone else gave me that like I don't know to be true. And I just feel like that teaching aspect of it, like people coming to me and asking me questions or needing my help or whatever, like it's a big part of like being a projector in human design. And so I feel like nursing really satisfies that for me. And it does in like the way that life coaching didn't, which is interesting because life coaching is like very similar. But life coaching was just about people kind of dumping like for an hour on you. And I'm more of like the person of like, come to me with your problems and I will solve them for you. And I will figure out the most efficient way to do X, Y, and Z. Or like we can like talk it out and like I'll give you like what I would do or like what, has worked for me or, how I see your problem and like how maybe give you a different perspective on it. Like, oh, did you look at it from this way? It's like that's my projector, like little magic that I have and I know that I have. So this job kind of fits that and I like it. So like for my next job, I'm like, okay, like these are the things that I want to bring in, which I never really gave two shits about, to be honest with you, prior to becoming intuitive and really paying attention to things like that. I never paid any attention. So now I know all these little bits and pieces about myself. So the next job, I'm like, okay, like what are we doing? Um, so had the interview. I don't know if I said that. I had the interview this morning and I didn't get the best vibe. Like first of all, it was Monday through Friday, so that was like a no for me. And the only reason I like considered and I allowed her to push my application through was because the possibility for working from home. So that's like a strong maybe though for me. Like to do like a hybrid kind of thing. I don't know. Ideally, I'd like to work 3 shifts, what I do now? Unless I'm getting paid more money. You wanna pay me more money, I'll do the Monday through Friday. But they also balked at the number that I gave them. And there's no way on God's green earth that I'm moving to Northern Virginia without the number that's in my mind being okayed. No chance in hell. No way. Because if not, that's like over half of your paycheck a month going to rent. Like, are y'all crazy out here? No. No, not in your life. No. There's just no way that's gonna happen for me. So, personally, okay? So, that was kinda bummed because overall the job in general, it's like a, transplant coordinator basically, and you work in like a clinic setting and your patients come in and you still have patient care and you're doing nursing assessments and getting their lab work and like organizing all the things that go into transplant because it's a lot to get them on the transplant list. Um, and kind of following up with them and things like that. So I think I would really enjoy that. And like there's a lot of teaching that's involved, and there's a lot of like going through the process and what they can expect and not expect, and a lot of that, which I think I would really, really, really enjoy and actually be really good at. But that Monday through Friday energy, ugh, mm-mm. And the money. So logically, I've kind of like crossed that one off. So I haven't applied to anything else. I have not really been looking. I've just kind of like gotten to a place too where I'm also listening to my gut on it. And I'm just like, let's just take a beat. Let's like get through the holiday and then let's like come circle back to it on like on the other end of it. And these people know my name. She's a recruiter. She knows that I'm interested in other positions. And that I mean, I am moving forward with that. And I told her to go ahead and like, I'll, interview further and like maybe go shadow or something for the day. Um, but I made it really clear that like, if they're not willing to budge on the money, then like, there's no point. And she was like, no, 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 everything's like always negotiable. Like we can see. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. Um, And I also think people like really like I'm so blunt and straightforward because she was like asking me, she was like, does your job know that you're, looking for other jobs? And I was like, absolutely. Like I'm like full transparency. Like I have a podcast where I like run my mouth. So like it's out there. Like I'm not hiding anything from anybody. Like not hiding anything. Okay. So but I feel like people appreciate that. And like especially when I'm like, listen, you can't make the money work, I'm not coming. Sorry about it, but like single girl living in Northern Virginia, like studio apartment, girlfriend. And like I'm still trying to like save my money. You know what I mean? Like I got things I got to do, places to be, people to see. Like we're not doing all that. So anyways, we'll see. What else you guys gonna talk about with the job search? Because I think that you guys get like the gist of like following your intuition, but then also using like your rational, logical side for like specific things like money and location and where you'd like to live and things like that. And that's another bit that I've taken into consideration. Like I never in my whole entire life thought I would live in Fairfax, Virginia or DC. I just never in my life. And this is another thing that I want to say. Sorry, my nose is itching so bad. Um, things change, like your preferences change. And for me, like the last time I went to Richmond, because I always thought if I left again, like just took another job or whatever, like I would probably go to Richmond. But the last time I was in Richmond, it just kind of gave me the ick. And I was like, yeah, I actually don't ever want to live here. Like not at this moment in my life. You know what I mean? Which was interesting because I had never really felt that way about Richmond. I've always really enjoyed Richmond and thought it was like really great and it's like a drivable city and like there's no metro, it's like small enough and like I don't know, Richmond has a lot to offer. Richmond is a great city, like don't get me wrong, but just like for me I was like I don't think I want that. Like I think I would rather actually live in like DC. I don't know, and I've never felt that way before, but I'm just like paying attention to these little pings because while it doesn't really make that much sense, like it doesn't for me it doesn't make that much sense because I'm just like I've never ever wanted to live in like Northern Virginia. Or my ex-boyfriend lived in Woodbridge. And I remember I literally specifically ended that relationship because he never wanted to leave like Northern Virginia, like Woodbridge area. And I was like, yeah, no, never happening. Like, I'm not going to get married and like raise a family in like this area of the world. It's just not ever going to happen. Because all the houses look the same. They all live in those like suburbs, like those like which like I'm not saying like it's just not my preference. Like I'm not like downing it, but it's like these like all the houses look the same. They just like throw them up. They're in like a subdivision. Like people go eat at like Chili's and like TGI Fridays, which again, no shade, but like it's not for me. I would rather be like in the city than or like in the close suburb, like Alexandria or like, you know, 10-minute, like 15-minute, like metro ride into the city kind of thing. I'm just not down with like the suburbs here in the US, like especially outside of DC. It's just never been my thing. So the fact that I'm like considering Fairfax is like laughable because I'm like, what a hypocrite. But yeah, like at that point in like my life, it was like a big no. I was like, I'm never living up here. And now here we are. We're considering, I don't know. So, Yeah, you have to take those things into consideration too. And you know what? Also, all this stuff you don't. You absolutely don't have to take anything into consideration. You can take a job just because of money and like you need food. Take that job. You know what I mean? Like everyone's at different levels of their life. Like everyone's at different stages. At this stage of my life, like I have the power to choose and I have the capacity and I have that luxury that I get to just like sit here until something arrives that I like and that checks all my boxes or at least close to or the things that I'm willing to compromise on, those boxes get checked. Like otherwise, like I'm hanging tight, and I'm like very fortunate for that. So, um, I don't take that for granted for sure. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to like move through this job search with this kind of energy because when I moved back from Europe and I took this dialysis position, it was more of like a rushed energy about it. And I also had a psychic reading right around that same time. It just happened to fall that way. I have one with him every 6 months. And it just happened to fall like right around this time that I came back. It was like late August, I think. And so I'd seen the dialysis nurse position. One of my friends had mentioned it to me. And they were like pros about it, but I was also terrified to do dialysis. And so I was like hesitating about it. But there were certain things that really drew me in, like the schedule and like the money and things like that. So um I had my psychic reading and he was like, it's a big yes. Like you need to take this job. It's going to like really teach you a lot of things about yourself, which in turn it has. Like I never in my life thought I would be like running a clinic, like the leader in the building. And like, I just never, like even in an acute care setting, if they tried to make me charge nurse, I'm like, absolutely not. Never in your life. Don't even put my name down. And like now here I am, like the only one in the clinic. Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of running the show day in and day out. And yeah, I've like learned a lot about myself through this dialysis job, which he did say. And he was like, if you want this job, like you need to apply like now. And I was like, oh my God, why are they considering someone else? And he was like, yeah, like there are other people like, and they're going to be really upset if they see your resume and like you waited because they were going to want to hire you, but they hired someone else and now their hands are tied. And I was like, okay. So like I applied that day, got the job like within like 2 days and like that was that. So very interesting, you know what I mean? So, like, it's not always, like, this slow, methodical, experience that I'm, like, dealing with now because there's no, like, real rush, if that makes sense, but, so, yeah, I'm just taking it nice and slow, and I'm able to really feel it out, if that makes sense, which I appreciate, um, and we'll see. I also think it's just like everything else, like, as far as intuition, like, when you know, you know. So, like, if I'm kind of, like, hemming and hawing about this, like, transplant job, it's kind of like a no for me. You know what I mean? It's on the back burner, but it's probably a no. Because at this point, it's like if it's not 100% like, oh, yeah, like I definitely, yeah, let's do that. Let's give it a whirl. Let's try it. I'm like a no. It's like a no. And I'm kind of moving on from it. So, I'm trying to think of what else is like helpful that I made a list of things that, which also, speaking of lists, like making a list of things, you guys, is like super important. Because you don't even understand there's a lot of things that go on in your brain about the job search, and then once you put it out on paper, it just starts to make more sense, at least for me, like, once I start to really because writing it out, like, you have to take this is the thing I think that makes it so great, is, like, you have to ground yourself and clear your mind. In order to make a list, you really have to, like, clear your mind. You have to start it's like reading a book, it's like writing in your journal, it's like painting, it's like jewelry making for me, it's like it just like once you sit down and just like start, then your mind gets clear and then you're like, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. I want to feel this way at my job. I want to feel this way in these people's presence. Like I want to feel this way when I wake up in the morning. This is the kind of day that I want, like go through top to bottom. Like you start to like understand things and things that you want and also more importantly, like things that you don't want. So you're like focusing on the positives of like, what do I want? How do I want to feel? You know, all these intuitive led things, like heart led things. And then you can bring in your rational mind about things that, like, okay, this is like a red line for me. This is a boundary. Like, this is, those kinds of things. So I think it can like eliminate stress and like the overthinking that can cloud your intuition. So I think that that's really important to like create that time and space to like really sit down and like make a list with yourself. I'm not really suggesting like pros and cons, but I think you need to tap into like how you feel. Like how do you want to feel on a day in and day out basis? Cuz like for me that's the most important. There's no way I'm going back to that acute care setting where I'm like crying in the car before I get into work. No way in my life. So like now I call in things of like peace, slowness, like time in the morning because you know what I mean? I don't really have that right now. So those are like things that I'm narrowing it in. And like it's always going to change. Like things that I wanted 10 years ago I don't want now and whatever. You guys get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Okay? Just pay attention to how you feel more than anything else. Um I think reflecting on why is important. I think understanding like your core motivation for like taking a job or why do I want this? For me, it's like, why do I want to leave? Why do I have everything that I need, but like, what is it about me that's pulling me to leave? Like, what is it about this job? Like, what is it that feels misaligned right now? And I think that that helps um, declutter your mind as well. Like, do you just want to change because you need more money or whatever it is, I think that that's really helpful too. As always, like I'm going through my list of things, you guys tune into your inner guidance, which I've said multiple times, like pay attention to your gut feelings, your dreams, reoccurring thoughts that you have. Um, I use my pendulum, I use my tarot, I use my oracle cards, I use meditation, I use journaling, I use yeah, I just pay attention. And I think paying attention, a lot of people don't pay attention until it's like screaming. You know what I mean? And so I feel like I'm tuning in now that there's a reason why I'm ready to leave. And I'm not like I'm semi sure of like why, but I just keep having this reoccurring energy that's happening. And it's like showing itself to me day in and day out and day in and day out as I return to work, like after my days off. And I'm like, okay, another reminder, like it is time to leave. Like this has happened now. I don't want this in my life anymore. Like this has happened. And these like reminders keep happening. So if like we keep ignoring it, then it's going to be like a blow up in your face? So that's important. I talked about this loads. Identify your passions and strengths. So, yeah, aligning with your natural talents. And I use human design, you guys. I cannot say enough about human design. Look up your human design chart because I think as far as career, like human design is the most helpful thing. It's the most helpful tool. I have learned so much about myself through human design. And it's really, really, really helped me in the job search and like why I can't stay in certain jobs and like other jobs that I've done. And I'm like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. Like, of course I hated that because that's not who I am. Like, it's not what I'm about. That's not my strength. That's not, you know, I don't even want to say passion, but it's just not a strength. Like, it's not aligned with me and like who I am. It doesn't come to me naturally. Right. And so, like, learning more and more about my human design has really helped me understand and see the natural strengths that I have. And then now that I know that, I feel like that's why I've really excelled at this dialysis position because it brings out so many of those strengths that I have and like very few like problem areas, right? So um identifying your passions and strengths is a good thing. Number 5, research potential paths. So we know that like I do a lot of shadowing. I always ask to shadow. Always. So I think like your intuition really works best when it's paired with like informed decisions and like it's kind of the balance of that, like the brain and the heart. And I feel like that's what I'm talking about. It's like you're kind of pulled towards something and then you have to research it a little bit deeper. Like with this job that I just applied for, it was like I was pulled towards it for these certain reasons. And then you do the interview and it's like, I don't know. There's like a couple things that are hit or miss, but like I'm willing to shadow. I'm willing to go up there and meet with them and like really check it out a little bit more. So I feel like that's kind of like the mixture of that. So definitely doing the research that you need to do and like asking questions and um, looking into it a little bit deeper. And like shadowing, you guys, I don't even know. Like, I feel like people don't shadow anymore. I always ask to shadow. Always. Because you like really get a sense for like what your day is going to be like and who you're working with and like what's going on if you shadow. What else do I have? Listen for intuitive like green lights. Okay, Matthew McConaughey, green lights. Um, I think we also have to be like really paying attention as well, like your intuition. If your life is like really cluttered and chaotic and like you're hating your job and you're not creating these little pockets of like still and calm, you're gonna miss a lot of those little intuitive pings and the green lights that you get. Um, and so for me, like for example, this morning with the interview, immediately I felt it in my stomach of like, oh, I don't think this is gonna work. It was a physical sensation that I had, right? So that for me right there, I'm like, all right, got it, noted, paying attention to it. I know it's there. I know that this is probably a no. And we'll see, we'll see what happens. I think paying attention to synchronicities, like repeatedly hearing about a certain industry or a role or something like that is like a dead giveaway. I know that when I was like starting to apply to this dialysis position, I had never seen a dialysis position open, probably because I wasn't paying any attention. It wasn't put on my radar. One of my best friends, like she mentioned it to me multiple times and was like, you should do that, like blah, blah, blah. And like never in my life. I didn't even like the word dialysis never came out of my mouth. Like it was never on my radar. And then it just like kept reoccurring. It was like, what the hell? Like, okay, I guess I'll apply and just like see. So you never know, but look for those synchronicities and pay attention to your intuition. I had test the waters, which I think is kind of like shadowing, you know what I mean? Like in whatever capacity that's like in your career, you know what I mean? It could be freelance or like volunteering or like just to see if it's a fit. Like you got to test the waters. Oh, release fear and trust the process. Like that's a really big one. Because if you're, stuck in the fear of failure or the fear of whatever, like, oh, I'll never find a job that I like you're blocking your intuition and you're going to get stuck. So, I always come back to like affirmations when I have this happen because I do start to feel this way. And like, I've had so many different jobs in healthcare and, I don't stay places very long, right? And I don't know what that's about, but I also sometimes like in the job hunt, I get fearful. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never gonna find anything that like I actually enjoy. Like this, like, why do some people have like such luck in their careers and they find something and they love it and they do it forever? And then like I'm over here like changing jobs every fucking year because I'm just like, no, I don't like this anymore. Gotta go. No, I don't like this anymore. Gotta go. It's probably something for my therapist. Okay, guys, not for this podcast, but I always say affirmations to just kind of like calm my system. Like I trust the process and I'm exactly where I need to be. I like repeat that over and 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 over because there's a reason why. Like, I just, timing is everything. So you can't be fearful that you're never going to get a job because you will, and like you will find that job that you really enjoy. And like, I enjoy dialysis, like until I didn't, you know what I mean? And like, that's fine too. But that affirmation has just gotten me through so many times where I'm just like in that like frustrating, like waiting period of just like, I know I want to leave this job, but like nothing's really come up for me yet. But like, oh, like, am I ever going to find anything? I don't know what to do. Do I do this? Do I do that? Like, your mind starts going. So I always just shut it down and I'm like, I trust the process and I'm exactly where I need to be. Period. Like, because it is what it is. And it always works out, you guys. Like, it always, 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 always works out? Um, what else? Oh, take inspired action. So, I don't even know that I do this that well. I just because I'm not like a goal-oriented kind of person. So this is like one that I'm not that great at, to be honest with you. Because you have your intuition and that gives you a lot of clarity, but it's kind of like the action. As far as like manifesting too, like you have to put some kind of action behind it. Um, whether or not that's like making lists and like paying attention and, or putting yourself in places where opportunities can come to you, or if like being seen, you know what I mean? And putting yourself out there, whether or not that's just like putting your resume out on like LinkedIn or like reaching out to certain people or like it takes a little bit of action. So, That's what I mean as far as like take inspired action. So, and also it's like good to take one step at a time because it can get very overwhelming, you know? And then the last thing I had was reflect and adjust. So, um, your intuition evolves, and especially as you gain insights and experience throughout life and things like that. So, like, I think I'm in this phase of like reflecting on my dialysis journey and like understanding, like, does this path really feel aligned for me anymore? Like, should I maybe just go to another clinic, or, what have I learned from this job? Like, what can I take into the next job? Like, all these things that I talked about. I think it's really important to reflect and adjust on those things because what was important to me a year ago is not going might not be important to me now. As far as like the job search, and like what I wanted a year ago is different than what I want now. So we're constantly having to like regularly check in with yourself, and like, and that's okay. And be open to like pivoting if something no longer resonates with you. Cause I feel like that's where I am. I'm like, is it a pain in the ass now to like switch careers and do the whole thing and like find another job? Yeah, it's like a super big pain in the ass, but like I'm getting the nudge. Like I'm letting it nudge me out of this chapter of life because it's something that's no longer resonating with me and I can feel it. Even though it was great for a year and whatever, and I might, who knows, like I might just take another job at a different location. I don't know, but these are the things it takes some reflecting and adjusting. And you know, that's okay. I also like I want to say this because this is what I don't like. On city hospitals, one of their at the bottom of one of their nursing positions, I think it was like the PACU or something, they had mentioned it said like must show like commitment, like must show that they've worked at like places for 2 years or longer. And I was like, F you, like middle finger to you, because there's so many reasons why nurses leave jobs, and 95% of it is because of the company and because of the conditions and because of the patient ratios and because of how miserable it is. So I was like, the audacity to like shame people for not like committing 2 years of their life to like being miserable at a maybe hospital has some work to do. And I'm like, you take accountability. If you got to put that on a website, if you have to put that on your job, the job thing, the job description, you might have a problem yourself within your own company and like how you're treating nurses. Okay. Because if that's something that's that broad and you're having a massive problem with retention, with keeping your nurses, well, hello, the fuck? Like, so I will not be applying because red flag. You know what I mean? Like take accountability. That really irritated me. That really irritated me. I think that there is something to be said for that. And a lot of nurses, including myself, hop around, but we also have that luxury because companies don't know how to act. They don't know how to treat their employees. And that's also coming into this age of Aquarius. Hello, systems breaking down. People aren't happy. They're not staying. They don't want to give you their years, their time, their energy. Okay, they're going to go somewhere else, and then they're going to go somewhere else, and then they're going to go somewhere else until the system changes. Okay, hello, is it on? Is the mic on? I mean, gosh, I think maybe I need to be a CEO of a hospital. Like, because I just feel like they're not getting it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people in these positions that run these hospitals, this is such a side note, by the way, this is so irregardless, but they don't work in healthcare. They're not healthcare. They're like business people with like MBAs and shit like that, which is great. Good for you. But like you've never worked in healthcare, you don't know what you're talking about. And then they're the people that put that stupid shit on a job description of like, if you can't commit for 2 years, like, anyways, you guys, such a tangent, but it's true. And when I read that, I was like so annoyed. I was like, who puts that on a job description? Like, really? Oh my gosh. Anyways, so I think that's all I have to say about this. What I'm just doing right now is I'm writing out, I'm journaling, I'm writing things, I'm paying attention, I'm I know what I want, what I don't want, and all I can do is just like wait for the timing, wait for the job to show up, put myself out there, still be engaged, keep looking. Um and something will happen and something will be for my highest good because that's also what I call in. I don't play any games. I'm like, spirit guides, you send me the job for my highest good, okay? The highest of the highest good for my soul and nothing less, okay? Because I cannot take working at a place that just like sucks the soul out of my life. That's just never going to happen again. So I think that is it, you guys. As always, any questions, let me know. Please like, follow, share, do all the things. This is on YouTube. You can watch me talking away in my bedroom on YouTube. Um, and yeah, if you like this podcast, let your friends know. Thanks, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Bye.